So we heard about inbound and outbound change, but over time I've started to discover that there's a third source of change, and that's internal change and how that can influence the world. So just internal change is a dimension of influencing either as leaders or even as consultants and observers and scientists. And more of the post-quantum theories like Heidegger and many others, quantum theory, that sort of aspect that I'm finding fascinating. And I think it needs to be said here because we will be mentioning other things that are related. And just to make the connection between leadership and foresight, Gary Hamel, who's a famous management writer, in a recent book, probably came out 2-3 years ago, The Future of Management, noticed that in their analysis, in their research, they've noticed that any company or any organization that is caught behind the curve, you will always find leadership that retains its influence but has lost its foresight. So there is that dangerous territory where an authority or leader or management group can still be very influential within their team, but without the vision anymore. And that really, the time lag that creates usually puts businesses either out of business or have very difficult times and crises to overcome. Which we get to the question of, and this is foresight, more or less the framework for foresight is studying the world in what we call steep categories: the social, the technological, the political, the economic, the environmental aspects of the world or the system. And this is where we as consultants, because I work as a practicing futurist, mostly for businesses, but I've been involved in this project for the last year. So we started out in the large scenario building exercises with 250 participants at the time in Sinaya. So I'm getting more and more exposure into policy visioning as well as commercial foresight consulting for clients. What we notice in our work is that usually companies focus more on their immediate environment and they can't afford not to do that. And that's why people like us come in to talk about other adjacent areas in a wider context of farther future, farther time horizon, and also sometimes looking at deeper interconnections of the world that may impact them longer term. So the company is much better at knowing their immediate environment and industry. Where we complement that work is to bring in more pattern discovery and other, at first glance, not directly related changes that are happening in the world. Weak signals, discontinuities, and from there building alternative scenarios. So this is the second part of foresight, looking at the external world, if we can make that sort of distinction. What I've discovered also, though, is that by practicing this, people raise their awareness to a great extent, because what you see then changes you. It influences you. How you see the world influences you, and then vice versa, your way of perceiving the world influences what you see. So in that sense, it's very interconnected, and as I'm sure many of you know, there's a lot of interest in the boundary between external and internal, and whether that boundary is clear-cut is not very explicit, because we are blending with the world as observers and as leaders in the world. The objectiveness of our presence is called into question. We are creating the world just by being there, present in it, by the way we're seeing it. And this is coming up in the literature very much so, that there is some sort of coordination or correlation between the growing external complexity of the world and our capacity to grow our own mental complexity to be able to correspond adequately to the increasingly complex world and interdependent. Part of the reason the world is complex is because it's getting more and more interdependent. So we're seeing influences that previously were not there. So there are a lot of epistemological issues as well. The subject-object relationship is important, and realizing that what we see is also within our control. So we're not just trying to, or give up trying to control the outside world, and then we start to control maybe our world and in a way as leaders to influence it, but we also can grow our capacity to see that we're holders of many lenses. Once you start to appreciate the fact that you can change the lens by which you see, then you're no longer a victim to a way of perceiving. You're using it as a toolbox to know what's timely at that particular moment. And this is very important for leadership. These are some of the new theories in leadership that are coming out lately, and many of them are based on developmental psychology, adult learning. Until recently, unfortunately, many people believe that what you've learned by the age of 25 and the way your personality manifests by about that age, then nothing much changes later. Well, it turns out not to be the case, and even a lot of the studies in brain science confirm that the brain plasticity continues to grow as we grow older. So we can change all the time and grow into more complex frameworks or frames of mind. One source of change, of internal change, is relationships, because relationships, the people we work with, the people we communicate with, they give us feedback, especially if we ask for it. Asking for feedback is very courageous. Not many people want to do that. But if you create a trusting environment where people discuss each other and follow each other's work and actions and decisions and have a conversation or a dialogue around that, and listen to that dialogue, what people tell you, then you may become more aware of your own mental models and your behavioral or perception idiosyncrasies. Also, there's complexity in teams, not only in our mental complexity or the external world's complexity, but teams and organizations can follow a similar pattern of development as individuals. So the level of an organization and its maturity in terms of perceiving the world corresponds to individual development, adult development as well. We'll get into the individual development a little bit later. So what's important to me, and in a way to my research, but also to my practice, is that every conversation about the future happens in the present. In fact, some people say, not many people, some people say there is no future, as there is no past. Everything is, the only thing that's really real is the present. The only place where you can influence anything is the present moment. And that's in conversation, and that's in action. The thinking about the future is a provocation for your decisions in the present. Whether the destination will turn out the way we're expecting it, no guarantees at all. But you can use the future as a dimension in which to enhance your decision making.